Hi, it's been a while since I published my last content, and I just feel like the urge to say something. Now I'm doing the makeup removing procedures and just want to say something. I don't know if the recording quality would be good, but let's find out. So, I guess I'm going to talk about the topic that I've been meaning to talk about for a while. It's about my height. Yeah, it's about how tall I am. Well, my height, in case you don't know, it's 173 centimeters. I'm not quite sure how long that's measured in inch. I used to try to remember the way of transforming the centimeters into inches, but now I kind of forget. I know that 6 feet equals 182 centimeters, but other than that, I have to do a lot of math, and I'm not very interested in that. So I just need to say that I am 173, and often I would just say I am 173, like tall, if somebody asked me that. And after getting that answer, people's responses might vary. Some might say, "Oh, you're so tall," and others might say, "Really? I think you're much taller than that," and things like that. And I get that from a very young age. When I was about 4, 5, I look like a 6 or 7-year-old. And that might not be a very nice thing to speak of because from where I grew up, kids under a certain amount of height can get more discounts than, you know, the presumably older kids. Like if you are a kid that looks like a 6-year-old, they would consider you as a 6-year-old. They wouldn't really pay much attention to how old you really is, and that is kind of a headache for my parents because they have to pay extra for a lot of times, or they have to do a lot of explanations and bargaining so as to let me have the rights that I was entitled for. And that kind of things made me feel I'm a bit different from the others, and that makes me feel not so good, to be honest, because I feel like that being tall is a trouble. And then I go to primary school, and for a while I had to be seated in the back rows of the classroom, even the last row because I was so tall. And it's not very, you know, not so unacceptable for myself, but it's the it's the things attached to the status of being the last row that bothered me because others would assume that you are so tall, you're a giant, and your parents would worry, oh, can you see the blackboard clearly from the last row? Things like that. And when I was in about grade 4, grade 5, I would look like the same height almost with my cousin who was in high school at that time. And At that time, I felt a bit proud because I looks like as if I was so old and mature because kids at that age would be eager to be mature and to be considered as adults. And it's very, very hilarious because now my perspective has changed and I would kill for being younger. All in all, I felt kind of proud for being tall, and that just the beginning of feeling the benefits of my height. And then I entered middle school, grade seven, and there were a lot of tall girls in my class. At that time, I felt I am not so tall after all. And I didn't have to be in the last row when we were lining up for PE classes. That was kind of bittersweet because I was so used to being the tallest and I don't have to be, and nothing got taken away from me. Like, if I hadn't been the person who was considered to be the tallest, that is all right, but I have become pretty used to it, and now it's been taken away. That is really kind of hurts, but luckily I adapt well. But things has changed again once I entered ninth grade because I kept growing and other girls just didn't, so I outgrown them and I became the tallest. Then I entered high school, 10th grade, you might call it, and I was the tallest girl in my class, maybe the second tallest, because there was another girl who is a bit taller than me, like 2 or 3 centimeters, like that. At that time, I was so obsessed with having a crush, and sadly, the boys in my class were not so tall, and I happened to have this crush on a boy that is about my height. At that moment, I just thought, no, I cannot outgrow him because that would be awkward. It sounds so silly now. I say it out loud because it's just a stupid crush. It will pass like in 5 or 10 days. How should I let that be the bother for my own height? It's so impossible. But at that time, my immature and my um kind of blurry mind of my adolescence just feel that it is necessary for me to stop growing and just stay how all I was. Before that, I used to like to, jump around doing the, basketball dunking kind of move and, stretching myself. And I think that kind of helped my growing tall, but then I stopped that. I still do some exercises, but just not the height growing way in particular. I just kind of stopped growing, I guess. So my height has stopped at 171, kind of. I don't quite remember. And I didn't pay too much attention to my height since then. Just when I have a crush for someone, yes, I've changed my crushes for I don't know how many times. And I would feel kind of insecure when my crush is shorter than me. And I sometimes feel that. that is the reason why they don't like me back. Now I know how silly that sounds, but back then that kind of become my obsession. Like if I were only, shorter and smaller, and maybe I would be more, likable, lovable. But now my mindset has changed. Maybe that's kind of because I met Jack. Well, Jack is 10 centimeters taller than me, and when we're when we met, that was October 3rd to 2021 at my sister's wedding. And he said that he was looking for a girl who is tall. And I made a joke and said, tall, you mean like the same height as yours? And he said, no, that would be too tall. I guess maybe 170, like that. And at that time, I just thought, oh, that is me that he is talking about, isn't it? And then we got together, and maybe I will find another time to share that story. I mean, that bunch of stories about me and Jack. Just I have to admit that was the first time that I felt being tall isn't that horrible after all. Like, there are people who prefer the taller kind, and that is my mindset's major growth in, in a lot of times. But now I have changed to this mindset that I don't care whether others like my height or not. It's what is important is that I myself like it. And I don't have to live for others or to meet their expectations. I've got my fair share of you are too tall. You should stop growing. How would others view you from their perspective since you're so tall? Things like that. Now I just find that so ridiculous because no one is entitled to judge whether I have the suitable amount of height or not. I mean, I am tall or I'm short. It's my business. I don't have to just agree to anyone's comments as you should stop growing because you're already too tall. Back then, I would smile at it, but now I would kindly say that if I could get taller, I would. But it's not up to me, right? I mean, if it were up to you, wouldn't you want to get taller? Well, if you do, why would you stop me from having that wish? I mean, I don't mind getting taller. No, for what is worth, I would like to get 175 centimeters. I sincerely hope that I can get to that goal. Now I'm wearing shoes that have a bit heels, and hopefully that would make me taller. And now I don't feel guilty for making others seem small because everyone has their right to wear shoes that has heels of several centimeters. It's not a crime. In fact, it's just your freedom to wear whatever you want, as long as it doesn't harm anyone else. So I just wear my boots with heels and wear this coat that makes me seem taller, and I'm proud of it because I think it's my strength to to grow tall, and it's my parents' wishes to see me grow tall, and I shouldn't feel ashamed for it. And this is the time that I truly feel grateful for what I had, not just for saying, but really feeling genuinely from the inside. I think that's all that I want to say for my health, for my height, and hopefully I will see you, or rather, you will hear me next time. I don't know how long it will be, but just stick around and find out.